So this is going to be a Hackwitch for optionals. We're going to create a new playground or a new app. And this is my app copy 17. I'm going to go ahead and rename this. So I'm going to click back out. If you have it in the update, the easiest way that I found is to show in Finder, go here and then hit rename. And this is the optionals Hackwitch. I'm going to put a T at the end because this is, or I'm actually going to put an R at the end because this is the recording. So you guys don't have to do that, but the R to me says that it's the recording of it. And now we're going to open this. So I have it opened and it'll say optionals Hackwitch up here at the top. This does not have any navigation, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. And I'm going to move everything over so that you can see the preview, but I have more real estate to type in. So the first thing, and you will hear some papers just to make sure that I go through my notes, but the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to clear out my VStack. So we're just going to get rid of that. The other thing that I'm going to do, just so that I make sure that I have all my lines correct, is I'm going to, this somehow didn't get aligned with this. So I'm going to fix that. I'm going to Command A real quick. I'm going to go up to Edit and then Reindent. That's just something, if you've ever seen me debug somebody's computer, that's one of the things that I do to make sure that these are all lined up. But I want to make sure that my curly brackets are lined up. So all I did was just enter them down real quick so that they're all in a line, and I can say like line 7, line 6, whatever. So what we're going to do is, this is all about optionals. What if we have information that we don't know what it's going to be? So all of our text fields, all of our calculations that we've been using, they all have numbers and values so far. But what if we have something that doesn't have a value? So in the shopping list app, we actually kind of introduced that idea, and it was what if we don't give a quantity for the item that we're buying? This covers that a little bit more explicitly, or a little bit more in detail. So in order to do this, what we're going to do is, between my struct and the var body, we are going to add 2 @state variables to hold a word with nothing in it, and then to hold a number. This time we're going to put a 0, and we're going to explore that in 1 second. Inside my VStack down here, I'm going to display those out in text fields because I want the person to be able to enter in. So we're going to do a text field, and it's going to be the title key text right here. So I'm going to hit return on the computer. This is going to say enter a word, and I'm going to bind that word to the word up here. So remember, binding, you think $, and the word. Notice when it comes up, we have enter a word because there's nothing there. There's no value here. So now I have this put, or it's the placeholder. Couldn't think of what it was. It was the placeholder text. If I put something up here, then that's what appears down here instead. I've got to click off of it, but that's what appears. So if I don't have a value, the placeholder text gets displayed. Let's look at text fields with the title key value format, not the formatter, with the number. So here we're going to say enter a number. We're going to bind it to the number, and the format is going to be a number. Notice that, and we've done this all year, that the 0 here has a value. So that's what gets displayed, not this enter a number placeholder text. So that's essentially what we're going to be looking at in the next couple of minutes. All right. Well, what if we don't know what value, or we don't want to start with a value? So what we can do is we can actually change it so that the value for the number is optional. And that's what this whole thing is. It's the OptionalsHW. So up here, if we don't have a value for a number, it is nil. However, now the computer is going to be confused because the computer has to know how much storage memory to set aside. So us humans, we know that number is a number. The computer looks at this word as just a variable word, not an actual data type. So we need to tell it what data type. And specifically, we want to say, we think there's going to be a number there. We think there's going to be a value. So now, if you notice, I took out that 0, and now I have the placeholder enter a number over here. And so I can put in a number, and I click off. Well, this is expecting a number. What if, instead of a number, I type in a word and click off? Notice it didn't keep it, whereas if I type in an actual number and click off, it does keep it. And that's because I've set aside a memory space for the data type of a number, and that's what I have to store inside that. All right, let's explore some other types of optionals. We're going to do a button right underneath the text fields, and it's going to be a title string action, and it's going to say press me. And the action is going to be, remember when we get this code right here, we want to hit return on the computer, and we want to call this number up here. We're going to do some calculation with it, and we're going to multiply it by itself. So what we're going to do is the star, or the shift 8 is the star, and we're going to multiply it by itself. We're getting an error. So value of optional type int with the question mark must be unwrapped to a value of type int. Well, type int with a question mark is an integer. It's actually not. It is an integer in the sense that it stores a number, but it's not an integer in the fact that we said, there should be information there. But the computer's going, if I don't have any information here, let's say somebody put in a word, put in something that I can't multiply, that's going to be a problem. And that's why it's yelling at us right now or giving us this warning. The computer's saying, you're telling me that there's going to be some information, then you're asking me to multiply that by 2. If there's not any information, the computer is going to crash. And so it's actually stopping that from happening. So what we have to do is we have to unwrap. Think of this, the way that I think of this is kind of like a birthday present. So the computer's saying, you promise that something's going to be there. You promise that something's going to be in that present when you hand it to me. And you say, yes, it absolutely is going to have a value there to be able to do some calculations with. And you complete that promise. I promise there's going to be something in this wrapped box by the exclamation point. So now if I go over and put a number in, so let's say 5, so 5 times 2, if I hit press me, I get 10. I promised there was going to be something there to multiply. So now, if I try to tell the computer to multiply the word test by 2, the computer is going to crash because I broke that promise. So here we have an unknown crash. I know why it crashed. The computer's going, you broke that promise. So we're going to restart. And that's what that means. So this is the explicit way of unwrapping. This is the explicit way of unwrapping. There we go. All right. Just a couple of different ways to unwrap or promise that there's going to be things there. So one of the things we could do is an if let statement. So one of the things that I'm going to actually create another button just so that you can see the comparison. Again, it's going to be a title action button. This one again is going to say no push me. Doesn't actually matter what it says. And this time we're going to check for a valid input with what is called an if let statement. And basically we're going to create an if statement that says if there's something to do, then do it. So we're going to create an if let with a variable entered number. That is going to not populate because we're creating it, of type int equals the number which we have up here. So if whatever we enter is an integer, so if whatever is put here is an integer, then do something. In this case, we want to say number, and we're going to put this as entered number times 2. And just so that you can see the difference between here, I'm going to modify this button style just so you can see it. Border prominent. So now using the same one, if I put a 5 in here and I have push me, this runs because the number was entered as an integer. What if I put test and I put no push me? Nothing actually it doesn't crash. It does, one of the defaults is to kind of fix your spelling, and so it thinks that this needs to be capitalized, but it doesn't crash. It just kind of holds it there, and if I click off, it goes away. So this is if the number is true, if the number that's put here is truly an integer, then do something with it. If it's not, then it just kind of ignores the ability to crash. So this is another way, and this is doing this within if let statement, and it actually is right here. All right, so the statement's only going to be executed if a true number gets put in, or if a true integer gets put in. All right. One of the things that we can also do with this is, and just to remind you about how if-else statements work, one of the things that we can also do is add an else statement to this. So at the bottom of this, we can even add an else statement. If I could spell else, that would be helpful. And instead, we can say if it's a number, then do something with it. Else, if it's not a number, then print a number was not entered. And so now in our console, remember print means to the computer's brain. So I'm going to display that. And so now if I have test here, I can say push me and I can say, nothing happened. Or a number was not entered. So that's one way that we can test and have an if or an else statement, or the if-else statement. It's just a reminder of how those work. All right, and the last one of this, I know this video is getting pretty long, but I'm going to just do this in one shot. The last one is a guard let statement. So now we're going to guard against something other than a number being entered. So in order to do this, we are going to create a function. And remember, functions go down at the bottom of the page. The function goes right here between, this is the end of my struct, this is the end of my var body. We're going to do func for the func. And then we're going to say, we're going to name it. We're going to name it circumference. If I could spell it right. We're going to put in a parameter, and that parameter is going to be the radius of the number integer that gets put in to this text field. So we're going to actually call it, this is not going to auto-populate right now because we're creating all of this, but we are going to say, yes, it is going to be an int. Then, and I'll go down a little bit more so you guys can see, we expected curly bracket. So we need to say where we're going to start and stop this function. Inside the function, we're going to say let's answer be set to, and there we go, double the radius that we put in between these two parentheses. We're going to say times 2 times double pi. What is actually happening here is we're actually casting our integer, which is a whole number, to a decimal, which is a double number. And so it just means taking a whole number, the radius is probably going to have a decimal, so we need to warn the computer that we understand that it's going to give us a different data type back. That actually is a little bit more and this is where my error came out. If you have a space on one side, you have to have a space on the other side, so I have to add that. So you have to warn the computer what data type to give back if you're not expecting the same one back. After the end of this, I do want to do a print statement just so that I can see it. So I'm going to say print the circumference with radius. And then I'm going to string interpolate. So now we're going to grab the radius is, and then we're going to string interpolate the answer. Whew. All right. Now, this isn't going to do anything yet because, let me see, we should. So I should be getting an error right now. I think it's kind of funny that I haven't. Oh, let me see. I wonder if it's not getting an error because I haven't called it yet. So let's make another button to call this. So here's the beginning of my button. Here's the end. Fantastic. We're going to do another button up here for this guard. And this time I will expect I'm going to call this radius actually. There we go. Now when I call this, and I'm going to get the radius, and this time I'm going to get the number because I'm grabbing this number that gets put in right here. There we go. I should get an error. There we go. This is the error that I was expecting. So value of optional type int must be unwrapped of type int. So it's saying, hey, this is, again, very first problem we had. This may or may not have a value. You are asking me to do some calculations with that value. The computer, am worried that there's not going to be anything in there and I'm going to crash. So what we are going to do is we are going to check for a valid input with this. It's one of the ways that we can kind of like protect the computer and protect itself. So what we're going to do is inside the function, we are going to change the type int to a unwrapped type. And now we have another error. So we've just moved the error down, but that's okay. That's kind of what we're expecting. Value of optional type int must be unwrapped. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that we, again, have to promise that there's going to be something there or a default. So we know that forcing the unwrap is risky. So one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to fix this by doing a guard let statement. And so essentially right here that we're saying, check to make sure that there's something there first. So we're going to do what's called a guard let, and we're going to say entered, or we're going to say the radius. Oh yeah, no, sorry, entered radius is set to the radius, else, there we go, print exiting function. Now we actually do need, oops. The last thing we need to do is have a return. This return, I'm actually going to, there we go, return. Let's talk about what this just did. Oh, and this needs to go up here. There we go. So let's talk about what this did, and we actually have to fix something real quick. So what we're saying is the guard statement works so that the rest of the function will only execute if the statement is successful. We do need to fix one more thing because we're not pulling the right value, because what we've actually done is reversed it. So instead of the radius that we're checking right here, we actually need to change this to entered radius and this one also to entered radius. All right, and that warning should go away. There we go. So now we have the radius here. And now if we put in a number here, so let's try 5 again. The circumference with the radius of 5 is, there we go, 31.43. If we put in now a word instead, then this guard should basically not let anything happen or crash. So this is a guard lets. Why would you use this when just doing the explanation and the question mark is sufficient? Well, one of the reasons you would use it is if you needed to check some validity. If you're going to put in some if-else statements, and this allows you to build in the if-else statements and at the same time protect your app from crashing. It's kind of a nice way of adding things. The very, very last thing, I know I said I was almost done, but I promise I'm very, very almost done. The very last thing that we're going to do is we're going to what's called check for a, and I'm probably going to pronounce this wrong, but a coalescing operator. Basically, it just means a default. We're gonna say a default operator, but I'll fix that in a second. I'm going to actually, you know what? I'm going to move this down to here. And I'm going to actually comment out this whole thing right here because I want to show you the default operator. So what we're going to do for the default operator is we're going to again do a let statement. And we're going to say entered radius. And we're going to set that to the radius that we have. But we're going to default it. And this, we remember we defaulted with the shopping list. And so we can have a default number that also gets put in. So here, if the number 5, again, we have press me, the circumference of radius of 5 is 31. If we have nothing that gets put in, then the circumference of a radius default 0 right here is 0.0. So whatever this number is the default. This part right here is called a, let me make sure that if somebody can help me with pronouncing this, that would be amazing. But it's the default, basically. But it's also called a coalescing operator. Otherwise known as default. So that's it. That is the hack witch. That is optionals. So optionals with a word is really straightforward. It's an empty string. With a number or a data type value where you might multiply something together, that gives us a couple more options. We've got the explicit unwrapping. We have an if let unwrapping. We have the guard let unwrapping. And then lastly, we have the default unwrapping. So that is optionals in a nutshell.